Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to Dr. Rosli Zawati and all of you. Today we are going to present the topic that had been chosen, the existence of God in cosmological according to Plato. Okay, we are consist three members. My name is Mariam Jamila binti Muhammad Yazid 1172139.
My name is Nur Natasha Tushima binti Yusri 1172137.
My name is Muhammad Afiq bin Karul Anwar 1172143.
Okay, introduction. First, or sustaining cause, a necessary being, an unmoved mover, or a personal being, God exists that cause and sustain the universe. The cosmological argument is the part of classical natural theology is to provide evidence for the claim that God exists. The existence of God is the first mover or the unmoved mover and found among Greek scholars of philosophy and among Muslim theologians. Greek philosophers and Muslim theologians made effort to prove the existence of God through the rational argument, and one of these arguments is known as the cosmological argument based on their thought about the cosmos or the universe. Cosmological argument attempt to prove God's existence by observing the world. Okay, our research objective: first, to describe the intellectual biography of Plato. Second, to examine the existence of God in cosmological according to Plato. Our research program: who is Plato? What can we know from the biography of Plato? Second, what is the view of existence of God in cosmological according to Plato? Our research methodology: in this research, the researchers use a quantitative methodology centered on content analysis. We have read some books, journals, and articles in doing this assignment. Three main sources that we had used are: first, William Land, 1986, The Cosmological Argument from Plato to Leibniz, reprinted. Second, Haim M. Abdul, 1963, A Sheraton in a Story of Muslim Philosophy. And third, Michael Esposito, 2001, Plato in a Nutshell, A Beginner's Guide to the Philosopher of Plato.
Okay, next we go to the background of Plato. Who is Plato? Who is Plato? Okay, we can see this is the picture of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Okay, Plato is the student of Socrates and the teacher of Aristotle. Okay, Plato was an ancient Greek philosopher. His real name was clearly Aristocles, meaning best reputation after his grandfather. Plato was a nickname for Plato's birth. The name was given to him by his racing teacher for his physique, or for the breadth of his style, or even the breadth of his forehead. Okay, Plato was born around 428 before century in Athens, Greece. Plato died in 348 before century at the age of 80 in Athens, Greece. Plato's father Ariston descended from the kings of Athens and Mycenae. Plato's mother was Parisian, whose family boasted of a relationship with the famous Athenian lawmaker and lyrics poet Solon. When he was young, Plato must have been instructed in grammar, music, and gymnastics by the most distinguished teacher of his time. Plato was in the military service from 409 before century to 404 before century, and then joined a group called the 30 Tyrants, but ended up leaving it because of the violence. Plato had also attended course of philosophy before meeting Socrates. He first became acquainted with Cratylus, a disciple of Heraclitus, a prominent pre-Socratic Greek philosopher, and the Heraclitean doctrine. Plato began his philosophical career as a student of Socrates. After Socrates died in 399 before century, Plato gave up all thoughts of a political career, dedicating himself instead wholly to philosophy. He left Athens and for the next 12 years traveled around the Mediterranean, studied philosophy, geology, geometry, religion, and other science. Eventually, he returned to Athens in 387 before century and established his own school of philosophy at the academy. He started a school of learning called the Academy, which was eventually described as the first European university. At the academy, he taught his subject astronomy, biology, mathematics, political theory, and philosophy. Okay, this is some of his writing, such as Plato Apology, Plato Timaeus, the Republic of Plato, and the Plato Philophaedio.
Okay, so we go to our research objective. Second, our research objective, the existence of God in cosmological according Plato. Alright. So Plato, we choose Plato because he is said to be among the Greek philosophers who have thought about the existence of God, and the natural or rational theology is said to be originated from him. Okay, so the first point, Plato cosmological argument is used to prove the existence of God, to prove the existence of the unchangeable God. Plato is said to ascribe the God the changelessness, and he argues that the God is perfect being and hence incapable of change, since change in what is already perfect could only introduce imperfection. As perfect being God is cause of the God and of the God only. Second, in other words, God in Plato philosophy is the unmoved mover, since if God move, he is imperfect. Okey, konsep Tuhan dalam falsafah Plato adalah penggerak yang tidak bergerak, kerana jika Tuhan bergerak, dia tidak sempurna. His cosmological argument is to prove the existence of the unmoved mover that becomes the first cause for all causes and the first mover for all movements. Okay, next. Two other motions are added by Plato. The eight kinds of motion or change. The two are the motion with the capacity or power to move other objects when it is itself moved by something else, and the motion with the power to move itself as well as to move other objects. Plato argues that the power to produce movement is logically prior to the power to receive it and pass it on. In order for there to be causes undergoing and transmitting change, there must first be an uncaused cause to originate the movement. Okay, next, Plato works on the cosmological argument for the existence of God is called the Laws, Book X. Okay, next slide. Okay, the ultimate cause of a universe in motion must be living soul, and one of a higher order than the human soul. Plato motions, and the only kind of reality with the power of spontaneous movement is soul. Therefore, the ultimate cause of a universe in motion must be a living soul, and one of a higher order than the human soul. Okay, the living soul that ultimately causes a whole universe in motion is deemed a god or the first or supreme cause. Okay, next, Plato motions are expressed in the dialogues between Cleinias and Athenians. Regarding the motion and their natures are taken from observable motions such as the motion of the sun, the moon, stars, years, months, and seasons. Plato has rightly been called the creator of philosophical theisms, since he was introduced natural theology into the subject matter of Western philosophy. Okay, to conclude, according to Plato, it is only living beings with soul, that can originate movement. Imparted motion must ultimately depend upon originated motion. Okay, next. Okay, we go to the discussion. Firstly, we disagree with Plato cosmological opinion. And because Plato cosmological argument is a moving from effects to cause by resting its case on on the impossibility of an infinite regress of causes which ethicists defend. Okay, we refer to the reign of Abu Hasan al-Ash'ari, who was the founder of the Ash'ariyah sect of further explanation. Al-Ash'ari exhorts all human beings to see and reflect on the processes and changes taking place in all human beings from their first stage creation to the final and last creation to understand clearly that all the process and changes taking place in all human beings are not of their own making, producing, authoring and manufacturing. Okay, what is the argument from the Abu Hasan Ash'ari? Next slide. Abu Hasan al-Ash'ari derive three arguments for the argument of God in cosmological. First, human phenomena, old man and young man. For example, an old man cannot make himself a young man even if he wishes and desires, since he has no power to change his old body to a young body. A young man cannot escape from being an old man since he not a creator, a producer, a manufacturer and author of his own body. Only Allah can change. Second, cartoon phenomena and castle. No. Cartoon phenomena and cloth. Secondly, he states that indeed it is impossible for the carton to change by itself to spinning thread, then to weaving a knitting garment of or cloth without a weaver or a knitter, and without a maker and without an administrator. Anyone who takes the carton and then he waits for the carton to change by itself to become a spinning thread, then a weaving garment without a maker nor a weaver or knitter. Indeed, he goes to folly or instantly he takes refuge and ignorance. Okay, last, the castle. Al-Ash'ari states that anyone who goes out to a desert or a wilderness where a constructed castle does not exist, then he waits there to see that the mood there changes into bricks and the bricks pile up on each other without a maker nor a builder. He is indeed an ignorance also. Okay, to conclude, Al-Ash'ari refutes some Muslims who think that there is no need to use or utilize the cosmological elements to prove God's existence. Al-Ash'ari stresses that the cosmological elements, namely the motion and rest, al-harakah wa al-sukun, both prove God monotheism, al-tawhid. So, do the cosmological elements, namely the aggregation and segregation, al-ijtima wa iftiraq. The aggregation and segregation both prove God's monotheism. Okay, next.
As a conclusion, it can be concluded that Plato is the one of the most important figure of the ancient Greek world and the entire history of Western thought. Plato's cosmological argument is used to prove the existence of the unchangeable God. In other words, God in Plato's philosophy is the unmoved mover since it got moved. He is imperfect. His cosmological argument is to prove the existence of the unmoved mover that becomes the first cause for all causes and the first mover for all movements. The idea of God already exists in every mind of people regardless of their religious background. None of the final words and capable clearly outline the true nature of God, even though his effect remain feel, be seen and confronted by human in what they are and where they are taught. Thank you from us.